Alrighty, what are we doing today? So first things first, we did a little overview on where LEED comes from, why it exists, and why we're using it. We're going to go into the LEED background, who runs the show behind it. Then we'll move into the 6 categories on where we earn our points. And finally, what are the next steps? How do we pass this exam? What are all the logistical things? But first, I've been talking to you about a half hour. Who am I? So my name is Lauren Melodic. I have had my LEED accredited professional in the building design and construction for the last 3 years. I just graduated back in April from here at the University of Toronto in civil engineering, where I focused on building science. And how long have I been doing this? Why did I get involved? Well, during my first year summer internship, I worked on a LEED project. If you guys know the highway service centers along the 401 and the 404, they're really fancy, lots of tax dollars there. Well, anyway, that was the project that I was working on. I had a very well-respected task. If you notice, I don't know if you guys drive RVs, but all RVs have to dump their waste somewhere, so I designed the RV waste stations, which is pretty much a hole in the ground. And those projects, if you don't know, are all LEED Silver. And I had no idea what LEED was at the time, but as I continued working on that project, I saw that it was a way to rate what a green building is, how to define it. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And I thought that was where the industry was going to go. And so although I didn't really work on any kind of LEED-related task on the project, I got LEED project experience from that, and that made me eligible for my LEED Green Associate, my LEED AP exam. So I studied that summer, wrote the exams, and when I went back to school in my second year, no one knew what LEED was. So none of my friends, none of my professors even had an idea what LEED was, so no bragging rights there. And as I explained it to some of my friends, they said, yeah, that's actually a good thing to have. I think that makes sense. It aligns with their morals. But they looked up the courses and they were about $600–800. There's one at U of T, I think, for $1,000. And no one can really afford that on a student budget or a reasonable budget. And I just started tutoring them, showing them the ropes, what to do, and eventually there was enough demand that I could hold classes like this. So for the last 3 years I've been holding classes identical to this, and just preparing people for a fraction of that price and time. Because students don't really have a lot of time, no one does. And so far 1,000 people have taken the course, and everyone has passed the exam, so no pressure, don't screw that up. And so that's a really nice thing to have. I just returned from a big road trip around the States where I went to 50 different schools in the span of a few months and just held this identical course. So it was about 20,000 lonely kilometers, and I survived, and now I'm back to teach it in Toronto. And so what is leading green? Well, we used to be called leading LEED, which was very clever, but LEED is trademarked, and so that's not okay. And now we're leading green. Why I like LEED so much is because it's multidisciplinary. So I don't know exactly what I want to focus on. But in LEED you have to be a jack of all trades. You need to understand how the mechanical systems are integrated with the building envelope, how renewable energy works, how our water systems work, and you get a taste of everything. And maybe you'll find something that you like through that process. I've worked as a LEED consultant. I worked at Morrison Hershfield, one called Provident Energy Management, which is Tridell's engineering department, and Smith & Anderson's Footprint, which is their sustainability division. So that's where I've gotten my LEED experience. I'll try to bring as many examples into today as I can. So what is LEED? If you look at LEED as a tool, it's good because when you decide to go LEED early on the project, you are making the commitment. And from then on out, every decision you have in the back of your head, you're going to think, how will this affect my LEED points? How will this affect the sustainability of my building? I mentioned it's legitimate. It's created by you and me, the professionals, for use by us. And most of all, it's marketable. If it wasn't marketable, if people didn't recognize what LEED is and associate it with the sustainability, then there wouldn't be any room for it. If we look at LEED, there's 2 parts. Part 1 is accreditation. People are accredited. Buildings are certified. If you look at people, there's 2 main tiers. The first one, why we're here today, is the Green Associate, which is a really nice designation out there because it's honestly the only entry-level thing you can get to get into sustainability. Either you're in a current position and you want to portray yourself to clients as more sustainable and have that certified sustainable knowledge, or you are looking for employment from interior design, planning, architecture, engineering, manufacturing, forestry. Honestly, if you want to display your sustainable knowledge, this is really the only way to do it. So even if you're not working directly on buildings, it's still a great job, great thing to have. And employers really like it because eventually they're probably going to look at their employees and say, hey, we want to get everyone LEED certified. Or they already are having that policy. And if you come in with this designation, they're going to say, oh, great, I'm going to save $1,000 on the training because they really splooge on that. And I'm going to save your working hours because I won't have to pay for you to get trained. So it's a really nice thing to have walking into an interview. The LEED Green Associate is a prerequisite to the LEED accredited professional. You don't have to pass the GA to write the AP, but you have to take them together, or you can take the GA first, pass it, then take the AP. I did mine together, honestly, personal preference. The LEED AP is much harder. The Green Associate is a broad look at LEED, where it comes from, how it has to do with sustainability, whereas the LEED AP are for those who will actually be using it. It's honestly a breakdown of each credit number by number, looking at the thresholds and how many points associated with them. While the Green Associate is great for getting you into the door, the AP should come with a nice little salary bonus. And so this is the Green Associate course, and in June or July, you guys have to take your LEED Green Associate by July, because it's getting a little harder after that as LEED version 4 comes into play. So that is your deadline, which is good because you should all take it by then. And I'm trying to encourage people to take their AP exam as well before then. I missed my cutoff. I wrote it in 2009, and so if I took it a month before, I wouldn't have even had to do the Green Associate. Too bad. And then there's the LEED Fellow. So the LEED Fellow are for those that have had their AP for 10 years, being involved in the building design construction area for 10 years. Do you guys know what the exam was 10 years ago? If you could sign a check. Haha. Now we have the Green Associate and the AP. So what is LEED? Where does it come from? Who's behind it? The United States Green Building Council, they're the people that said, hey, we need a way to define a green building. And so they've created LEED, and they continuously update it. They put out the education programs, like this, rating systems, reference guides, which are pretty much the LEED Bibles, and just recently, a few months back, they now take care of professional accreditation. So they keep track of your certificates, and they keep track of your continuing maintenance, continuing education. Whereas the Green Building Certification Institute, they're the implementers. So while the USGBC creates, the GBCI implements. So we submit all of our documentation, our drawings, our designs to LEED Online, which is a nice platform. LEED Online is used everywhere else in the world but Canada. We have these things called LEED letter templates, which are annoying, and hopefully they'll change that. And we submit it to LEED Online, and that must meet the LEED standard, and it is checked by the GBCI. So again, this is the troll bottom line. It's the most important picture of the day. During the actual exam, if you're really having any kind of trouble with a question, have absolutely no idea, you really just have to sit back, read it again, and think about what sphere are we trying to address. Reapproach, and you'll really start to see it a lot easier. I don't know everyone's background here. I try to teach it from the ground up. We have from first years to industry professionals. There's going to be a lot of new terminology, and I really try to break it down and explain anything you may not know, or just to remind you. So, if you don't understand something, please raise your hand and I'd be happy, because if you have that question, someone else down the road will too. Firstly, what's a hard cost? A hard cost are those physical, the labor, the actual construction costs. Whereas the soft costs are the consulting fees, the permit fees, the designs, the drawings. What's value engineering? Value engineering is something we don't like in sustainability, because when we're building a new project, I can guarantee it'll go over budget. And when that's over budget, what are the first things to come out of that building? Well, they're the more efficient, they're the sustainable technologies. That's the first thing to come out. If you look at LEED, there's a lot of different rating systems. We have many different types of buildings and they have unique needs. And LEED tries to tailor those rating systems towards those buildings. The most popular one is LEED for new construction, because it's easiest to make a brand new building sustainable rather than retrofitting an existing one where LEED for existing buildings is portrayed. Then we have LEED for schools. That's the same as LEED for new construction, just with a couple schools related credits. Now there's one called LEED for core and shell, which I'll try to explain with an example. So if you guys know the building Hallmark at Yonge and Sheppard, it's a monstrosity. So I worked on that one. And so for that, the first 8 stories are office condos, and then there are 2 residential towers. So for those office condos, we were going for core and shell, because as the builders, we only built the core and shell of the building. So the building envelope, the floors. We built the core air handling unit. However, we left it unfurnished, no carpeting, no individual HVAC systems for each of those office condos. And what would then happen is people and offices would buy them from us, companies would buy them from us and retrofit them accordingly, and realistically, hopefully they would go for LEED for commercial interiors. So they kind of go hand in hand. LEED for core and shell is the developer, commercial interiors is the tenant. They'd fit it out to meet that. Whereas the residential towers, well, we were putting in that HVAC system in each condo unit. So for those, we went for LEED for new construction. Then there's LEED for healthcare and retail. Just know they exist, nothing crazy about them. LEED for homes is a little bit of a different rating system. And I've seen a lot of LEED for homes questions on recent exams. So I added a chapter to our textbook, don't fear, it's 2 pages long. But that really covers all that you need to know for LEED for homes. And LEED for neighborhood development is where we see the USGBC trying to push, because honestly, one building alone can only do so much, whereas a whole neighborhood working together to try and live, work, and play in that same area, well, that's really what we're trying to look for. I want to introduce to you, it's called the 40-60 rule. And the 40-60 rule is how we decide which of these rating systems to go for. And what it says is if 60% of the gross floor area or more pertains to one of these rating systems, that's the one you go for. What's gross floor area? Well, just all of our floor areas added up in square foot or square meters. Honestly, no one really uses that in real life. In real life, at the end of the day, the people working on it, the project team, just decides which rating system makes sense the most. Something I want to point out, in the reference guide, there's a weird wording that the gross floor area of a building has to be certified under a single rating system. So if on those 8 floors, if I build floor 7 really poorly and put in a bad HVAC system, I can't just leave that floor out of my submission. That's all it's saying. You have to include all of the floors in that building. Again, here are our certification levels from certified up to 49 points, silver, gold, and platinum. There are 100 possible points in those 5 main credit categories, and then I like to think of as 10 bonus points. That will take up a lot of time today. How do we get those points? How do we get certified? The first thing we have to do is meet our minimum program requirements. If you don't satisfy one of these, you cannot be a LEED certified property. These are the bare minimums. Honestly, you meet these without even knowing. So, The first one says you have to comply with environmental laws. Well, if it's a law, you probably have to comply with it anyway. You have to be a complete or permanent building space. So a trailer, or my high school had portables out back. Those are not permanent building spaces. They could not be LEED certified. You can't gerrymander. So, I don't know if you've heard of gerrymandering, maybe in politics, but what that means in the built environment is something like this. So, let's say this is our building site. We have this nice contaminated swamp in the middle, and for some weird reason, we decide to build our building right around it. So this is our building. And when we submit our drawings to LEED, we are not going to include this swamp. We're going to say, hey, it doesn't exist, I don't want to remediate it, which LEED would make me do. So there that goes. That's gerrymandering. It's excluding something that would make it harder for you to get LEED certified. Obviously, it's cheating. You can't do that. Okay? So that's number one. You have to have a minimum building area of 1,000 square feet. So a building under 1,000 square feet cannot be LEED certified. Minimum occupancy rate of one person. What does that mean? That means one person has to use the building at one point in time throughout the year. Obviously, you're not building it for no one. Be transparent. You have to be honest and share all of your building data with the GBCI and the USGBC. And there is a minimum building area to site ratio. This is a theme in LEED, higher development density, and this is the bare minimum. And anyone, honestly, even farms would meet this. And that is 2% of the gross area of the site has to be building. So if our site was 100,000 square feet, what would our building have to be? Perfect. So 2,000. So either two 1,000 square foot stories or just 2,000 square feet alone. That's the minimum, and we'll be talking lots more about that as we continue, and there are some credits that address this as well. Okay, so those are our minimum program requirements. If we don't satisfy one of those, can't be a LEED certified building. Then we move into prerequisites. Prerequisites are mandatory. Every single credit category, all 5 of them, have at least one prerequisite. Prerequisites are a minimum level of sustainability. Why do they exist? They exist because, say I'm building a new building and I see energy and atmosphere is how I'm going to save the most money, and that's honestly all I really care about. I can put all my money into that one category and save the most possible. However, LEED is not an energy rating system. It is a sustainable building rating system. What about my water? What about how connected I am to the different transportation outlets? What about my indoor environmental quality, how healthy it is into the building? I'm ignoring that. So what prerequisites do is they establish a minimum level. At a minimum, I must be 20% more water efficient than a conventional building. I must be 10% more energy efficient than a conventional building. I must bring in this much fresh air per square meter. And by meeting all of these, now I have established a minimum level of sustainability in my building. However, when I move on to credits, credits are the ones I can choose. Now I say, all right, I've established my 20% better water. I don't care about water. I don't want any credits there. Now I can put all my efforts in energy and atmosphere and even gain enough points in that category alone to get LEED certified. So, based on how easy those credits are to achieve, how much they mean to you, the building owner, the developer, the people, and how much they cost, you pick the credits to go for. Credits are broken up into 3 main items. First one is the intent, the why. We'll be focusing a lot on that today. Why does LEED award you points for doing this? How does it contribute to sustainability and the triple bottom line? Requirements are out of the scope of this course. Those are the detailed thresholds, the amount of points per credit, We don't need to know that today. However, I will be talking enough about it because you need it to really get an idea of what a LEED building is. But those specific numbers will not be asked on the exam. And then strategies. How do you achieve these credits? Meet those intents. We'll talk lots about that today as well. So what are those categories? 5 main categories make up 100 points. Sustainable sites, water efficiency, energy and atmosphere, materials resource, indoor, environmental quality. And then these 2 are 10 more points. These are homes-specific credit categories, which may come up on your exams. So what's the whole process of getting a building certified? This is what LEED consultants do. The first step is registering your project. You register your project via LEED Online or through the Canadian Green Building Council, US Green Building Council website. The project administrator is the person that actually registers that project. You're the initial point of contact. That can be a LEED AP, it can be a LEED GA, it can be a homeless person. Doesn't matter, anyone can register a project. LEED Online is that platform that we use to try to keep track of all of our credits. We invite all of our different stakeholders, so we have our electrical guy, civil, architect, bring them all in, and we can assign each credit. We can say we're waiting for your drawings, we're waiting for your designs on this aspect. And it's just a great way of keeping track of everything we need. I showed you the LEED credit scorecard. It was just that thing in the bottom right corner of the initial presentation, a way to keep track of all of our credits, what we plan to go for, what we can achieve. If you look at the 8 steps, the first thing you do is you register your project. You pick which credits you want to go for using that credit scorecard, what's important to you. You invite everyone on to LEED Online, your different teams, and assign them their roles. You submit your LEED Online documentation, all of your different calculations, your narratives, then your designs. They come back to you and they'll say, okay, yep, you can expect to achieve all of these points. Then you actually build the thing and you submit your construction, your as-built drawings, and they say, this changed from your initial design, this changed, we need more information about this credit, you're not going to get this one anymore. There's a little bit of an appeal process back and forth, and eventually, based on the amount of points you've achieved, you get certified. That's the process. Something called Credit Interpretation Ruling Requests, CIRs. All these are is when I don't know something in LEED, what do? First, I'm going to look at the reference guide, that LEED Bible, read it through, see if it can answer me. Then I'm going to contact USGBC customer service, wait on hold, hang up angrily. Then I'm going to submit something called a CIR, and all this is a formal question. $200 per question, 600-word maximum, and essentially it says, if I do this, will I achieve this credit? And my project is unique because of. And they'll come back to you with a yes or no and why. However, they're not precedent setting. What do I mean by that? I mean, if I submit a CIR and they say yes to me, doesn't necessarily mean your CIR will be said yes to. Because maybe my project has very unique needs. However, there is a nice bank of all the CIRs asked out there, and if you have a very similar question and don't want to spend $200 on this, you can say, as per CIR X, this is why I should achieve the credit. Again, these are the 2 sides of LEED. On the right, why we're here, accreditation. These are the different specialties on the right. For example, I am in the building design and construction specialty. I have a LEED AP, D, D, and C. And what that means is I have knowledge over these 3 different rating systems on the left. That is where we get certified. Right is accredited, left is certified. Whereas someone who wrote the LEED for Operations and Maintenance exam would have knowledge over the LEED for existing buildings. Okay? Every single professional designation out there, wherever it may be, has some form of continuing education, credential maintenance. And for the LEED Green Associate, it is $50 every 2 years. For the Green Associate, you need 15 continuing education hours. For the APs, you need 30 hours. There are many places online that sell these for exorbitant amounts of money. I ask you not to do those. I follow up with you guys after this whole thing and I show you where to get them for free. There's lots of places to get them. If you are still a student, your classes will all satisfy them, without a doubt. But just don't pay for them. Sorry I have to do this. These are actual questions, but there are only 2 acceptable ways to write the United States Green Building Council. That is US Green Building Council or US GBC. The rest of them are unacceptable. Yes, it's an actual question. It's not my fault. I want you to make the distinction between these different words. LEED certification with a lowercase c is the whole process of getting certified, from registration to the final award. LEED certified within lowercase c can refer to your building as any level. So from certified silver, gold, platinum. Whereas LEED certified with an uppercase C, that refers to the lowest rung of certification. You are a LEED certified building between 40 and 49 points. Make sense? Good. There's no S in LEED. I once got this lovely 400-page RFP from the City of Toronto, and whoever wrote it LEEDs a bunch of times, and it looked really funny. LEEDs is a place in the UK, not green rating system. We talked about that holistic design approach. Another word for it is integrated design approach. And the whole idea about this is sitting down early on in the project stage. Because every single change you make throughout the life of the project, it's just going to make more and more expensive. It's a lot easier to change the preliminary design, whereas changing the design when it's under construction. Cheaper and easier. So you encourage people to come together in something called a LEED charrette. And in a LEED charrette, what we have is all the different stakeholders, the owner, the contractor, the engineer, the architects, laying out what they want out of this project and how to achieve it. When I led one of these, it was actually pretty much me and 10 other of the stakeholders, and what we did was we brainstormed different items that might be important to the project. So from water to energy, and we put them all up on the board, and I gave everyone 3 stickies, and we just stuck them on the board during the LEED charrette to really find what's important to the owner, the contractor, and what we really want out of that project. So again, holistic design approach, because we don't want to have the mechanical engineer, for example, doing a too efficient HVAC system because we built our building envelopes so tight and so well. Working together is a huge theme. Talked about the life cycle assessment. The life cycle assessment is the environmental impact throughout the entire life of the project, whereas life cycle costing is just the cost at each stage of the product's life.